Hey, today we're going to talk to you about different ways to process a disagreement. I'm Mitch.
And I'm Kim at Keeping the Vows.
Hey, just to let you know we're imperfect, this is the end of the video, but we forgot to read the question, so Kim's going to read the question now, okay? Here we go. We'll put it at the front. You'll be cool. Yeah.
What are some effective ways to communicate when you're upset and not ready to talk about it yet? Needing cool off time or time to understand your own feelings before talking about them.
Got you covered. Opposites attract, don't we? Totally opposite people attract. And so it's only would make sense that when we disagree that we have opposite ways of looking at it. And generally there's one person who really has to handle it right now and the other person really doesn't want to talk about it right now, even though you're in the middle of a disagreement. So the person that doesn't want to talk about it runs off to the other room and the person that has to talk about it follows them all over the house, right? Because that's just how people are different. So what we have to do is we have to work out a compromise in that. And the compromise isn't really that hard. It's just like maybe in the morning you have a disagreement and you just say to yourself, go to your spouse and say, hey babe, you know that I love you. We're going to be okay in this, but I just need some time to think about it. I promise you tonight when we get home from work, we're going to discuss this and we'll get it worked out. But right now, could you give me just a little bit of time to think about it? We'll be okay. And it's really good for a couple of reasons. One is the person that needs time to think gets their time to think. And the person that has to handle it right now has to step back. Now, the person that needs their time away can't just walk away from it and stay away from it forever. That's another thing that we talk about. Kim, tell them about that.
Yeah, since opposites attract, often one person will be a peace at any price type person. And so that means they just want to get along, not have an argument, not have a disagreement. So they're just willing to agree with whatever the other person wants to do. But that's not really a marriage. It's not good for your oneness. It's not good for growing together. And also, it's going to build up, and probably that person is going to end up exploding eventually.
Yeah, and that's not good for anybody when somebody explodes like that. The next thing you got to do is evaluate yourself. I'm a private pilot and a motorcycle rider, and like in my pilot training and motorcycle training, they say the most important part of that is you. The most important part of an airplane is me. And there's been times when I'll call up, have them pull the plane out of the hangar, and I'll go out there, do my pre-flight, get in, check fuel and everything, and I sit down in the seat and I just sit there and go, you know what? This isn't the day for this. I'm just not in the right frame of mind to be up in the air like this. And I actually get out and have them push the plane in, and I just go back home. And there's been the same thing on motorcycles. Today I'm going to go ride a motorcycle. I said, no, today's not the right day for that. So you got to examine yourself, because when you really do examine yourself, you might get to the bottom of it and understand that, hey, wait a minute, my spouse isn't the problem here. I think I'm the problem. Mm-hmm. And so you want to watch that and not get angry when this happens too. When you get angry, there's two things that generally happen. One is your ears tend to close up when you get angry. You don't hear the other person. And it seems like also your IQ drops by about 50%. If you're like me, you just can't afford to have that happen. So you don't want to get angry, okay? And Kim, what else can we do?
Yeah. I want to try using reflective listening. So I'll say, Mitch, what I hear you saying is, and I'll repeat back what he said in my own words. And this is usually very helpful because it helps the other person to know that you actually were listening instead of thinking about what you wanted to say.
Yeah, it tends to de-escalate the whole thing if there's people getting upset. If I know the spouse is listening, then there's no reason to be upset. So that's good. Also, don't keep track. We once, in our counseling class, one of our professors said that somebody came in for marriage counseling, been married for 20 years, and the guy came in with like a 3-ring binder this thick, and he kept track of everything his wife had ever done wrong for 20 years or something like that. Man, don't keep track of things. Don't say, well, this happened, well, that happened. You might say, well, I said I'm sorry the last 3 times. It's not my turn to do that again. Well, if you're as big a jerk as I was when we first got married, it was probably your turn to say I'm sorry the first 6 or 8 times. So don't keep track of things like that, all right?
And keep it current. Don't make it a history lesson. Don't go back in time and make a whole list of everything, and don't use the words always or never.
Yeah, it's just not fair. It's just not fair. We learned how to argue from people we're around. Maybe our parents or different people. And maybe you were married before and you learned how to argue from that person. And maybe that person was really argumentative, but maybe your new spouse isn't that way. So you have to relearn how to disagree, or else your new spouse is going to pay for what you learned from your previous spouse could happen. Winning and losing. Kim.
Something really important to remember is you and your spouse are a team. And if you're on the same team, you need to work together as teammates. So if I win the argument, our team loses.
Yeah.
The same way if Mitch wins the argument, our team loses. So you want to make sure you examine the argument first of all, is this something even worth disagreeing over? Lots of times it's not. And then secondly, try to come to a resolution that works for both of you.
Yeah. And also, we've learned too to pray about it. We tend to pray about things like as a last ditch effort. I think God really wants us to come to Him first. So Kim and I would used to get in a big disagreement, and we just hold hands and start praying. And I don't say, God, my wife's an idiot. Probably not the way to go with this, okay? But instead, I would say something like, hey, God, I love Kim with all my heart, but right now I don't understand her at all. Help me to be the person that I need to be so that I can be your person in this, and that I can give her the understanding that she needs. Just be with me and help me, God. And then Kim would pray the same type prayer, right?
Yes, and it was amazing how many times we got done praying and we'd look at each other and neither one of us could even remember what we had been arguing about, literally.
Yeah, that's great. So there's a couple things we want you to do. Check out some of our other resources. I know that we have another one about 7 things you can do to help your marriage, and that has some things in there called buzzwords. And we have a neat talk about, I think he was sitting in that chair, that would really apply to this, because a lot of our arguments aren't really that important. And also additional articles would be Safe Time, there's one, and there's one about crucifying selfishness. And also we have some, in our resource page, we have some handouts. I know that we have one on Safe Time, and we have another one about what you're like to live with. What you're like to live with. Hard to say it 3 times real fast. What you're like to live with. So check those out, and it will help you in that way. Hey, we're at Keeping the Vows. Appreciate you guys. Check out our blog at keepingthevows.com. Have a great day.